America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and we are doing the show today. And the show is on leverage and the COVID-19, because right now we're in the middle of what's called an unfunded mandate. That's when the government tells you to do something or demands that you do something, but doesn't give you the resources to do it. So it demands that we shelter at home, and yet does not give us like replacement income or anything like that, like $1,200 one time. Like, all right, so what you have to understand is freedom is the ability to make plans and enact them. A one-time payment does not allow me to make plans and enact them, right? A federal job guarantee might allow me to make plans and enact them. So it's pretty much the government has decided we're going to take your plans and you're now on our time. You're now on our time, right? So insofar as the government has abridged our freedom, there's a preventable political solution. You could guarantee payments. That would be a substitute income. You could give hazard pay. This is a politically preventable problem that could make sheltering in place and not onerous in the way that it is, and not destabilizing in the way that it is. So we're watching what is tantamount to a political failure. And I especially love local governments, because local governments have the ability to tell you to stay home, but then they don't have the budget to actually give you the resources to, manage your bills as you're not working or destabilizing your institutions. So we have to think about what the political problem of COVID-19 poses and where we have leverage. Regular citizens have leverage to actually secure justice, even in these times that are challenging. Normally I'd hit the beat, but I didn't cue it up, and I'm not going to go to it, so I'm just going to go right into the argument. So I'll pretend that they, did the intro. And now I'm going to talk about, you have to understand that the Republicans, as it stands, are ready to open up the economy. They got what they needed out of Congress. And now with all of the businesses going under, once we open up the economy, they're just going to, accumulate more and more power now that they've gotten pretty much an infinite amount of loans from the Fed. And they could, apparently anything under 500 employees is a small business, but, there are a good number of businesses that are over 500 employees that have applied for and received SBA loans, and so much so that the SBA loans and their loan forgiveness program has now been exhausted. Right, it was $250 billion with a B, dollars that was supposed to go to small businesses, and that's all gone. So black people, if you didn't get your paperwork in, well, other people did, and they got your money. So you have to understand the situation we're in right now, and the political response has been woefully insufficient. And this is a preventable problem. COVID-19 is not a preventable problem. The political fallout is a preventable problem. But what the right knows is that, if you want to redress this preventable problem, you need leverage, right? So the business guys have leverage. They have Donald Trump's phone number. They have the senator's phone number. They have Nancy Pelosi's, real email. And then the people in the streets now are Republicans saying, like, we need businesses open because the bailout has stacked the deck such that we would like business to open, and understand that if we open up the economy right now, as it stands, they've already stacked the deck. We're pretty much food, regular Americans. Unless you're like a strong business owner with a big savings, and you can just gobble up everyone who's going to go out of business. Like what we have now is fundamentally insufficient, both from a health standpoint and an economic standpoint, to just like open up and expect there not to be like massive fallout that disproportionately affects the most vulnerable. So so we need to understand that a few things. Those who are willing to risk their lives have an advantage over those who are at home washing their hands and are paranoid about toilet paper, right? Those who are willing to risk their lives when we reopen, those who are at home, paranoid about washing hands and toilet paper, are going to end up working for the people who are willing to risk their lives. Those who are willing to risk their lives to sustain a way of life will end up dictating the way of life for everybody, including those who aren't willing to risk their lives. So understand that, number one. Number two, we've all been conscripted. We have all been conscripted into pretty much a safety factory. We are at home, at work, like producing safety. Because normally, if we weren't at work, we would be outside doing what we want to do in civil society. But we've been conscripted by our government to produce safety. We're at war, and I'm okay with being at war with the virus because the virus is a worthwhile enemy. But we've been conscripted, and we're not even being able to negotiate our rations. We've been conscripted into staying home, and we need to act like it. We need to act like we are at work being citizens, staying at home, sheltering in place. And what that means is that we need to talk about what leverage looks like. I wrote a paper, a little piece on Medium about how this is pretty much a safety factory. America has become a command economy, and what we produce now is safety. Like, you're at home producing safety because the government told you to produce safety. That's a command economy telling you what to do with your active life. That's fine, but we need to talk about our work conditions. Right? As we're at home producing safety. And this is important because if we don't get to negotiate our work conditions, maybe we don't do what the government tells us to do. Maybe we actually organize like the First Amendment's supposed to, like allow us to do and redress our government. Because right now, you have to understand, the Senate, after they passed the big bailout for like the corporations, they took a recess. The Senate is on recess until May 4th. Right? So they've forgotten about you. The people who actually matter have already gotten their cut and have stacked the deck. They have pretty much an infinite amount of loans coming from the Fed if they want to through their friend at the private bank. By the way, the Fed, lends money to your bank that now can, or buys bad debt from your bank that now can lend more money tenfold times. So pretty much your private bank, if you have a bank account, has an infinite amount of money they can lend to somebody, probably not you, maybe your boss. And so your boss wants to get the economy going again because now you don't have any power. Your boss has all the power and an infinite amount of money from the Fed if they need it, and that's backstopped by the Fed if they need it, and everyone except you working people is going to do fine at the end of COVID-19. Now, this doesn't have to be this way, right? But in order for it, for the fallout from COVID-19 to be better than it's slated to be for working people need to be able to demand something from their government. They need to demand the same kind of security and in their plans and their ability to enact their plans that their bosses have. Right? And that's going to come from showing power, right? You need leverage. Right now, working people do not have any leverage over Congress or the finance industry. You simply have zero leverage. You could say like, well, we want a general strike. We should general strike. No, that's not going to work because one, you can't organize a general strike while sheltering at home because the people you need to walk out are not going to be on Facebook and Twitter. Right? So it's pretty much shunting all of the political work onto the most vulnerable workers in the American economy. So a general strike is simply not going to work. They'll have little wildcat flare-ups. But now, if there's a wildcat flare-up at Amazon, Jeff Bezos now has pretty much an infinite amount of money to, not just his private money, but like government credit, that's forgivable loans, to hire scabs. So there is no general strike solution out of this. It might make you feel good to talk about a general strike, but that's just it's shunting all of the political work onto a small subset of workers who happen to be the most vulnerable workers in the U.S. economy. So that's not going to work. That's fundamentally unserious. Writing mean letters to Twitter or to your local paper is fundamentally unserious too because, once again, that's no leverage. You don't have any leverage while you're at home. What leverage we do have is if we stop the business of producing safety on their terms. So what I propose, I think we should walk out. I think we should march. I think there should be a march on Washington. I think it should be, I think it should be before May 1st. I wrote about this at the beginning of the month, the middle of last month, It's called The Safety Factory. If you just Google my name, Irami Osei-Frimpong, and put in The Safety Factory, it's a little piece. The wrong people have been reading it. The wrong people have been reading it. The right actually gets the fight in a way that the left doesn't. I try to explain things to the left, but the right actually gets it. The left still kind of thinks, especially the materialist left, they still think that life is more important than the way of life, and the right knows that freedom is more important. So your way of life is more important than your life, and they're willing to risk their life. So they read the piece I wrote, and I don't know. I'm hearing the talking points come out of all sorts of mouths that aren't left mouths, right? So the right read the talking points and said, like, we need to go out on a strike, a safety strike, and actually march and threaten to, like, breathe on people. And, like, I say, you threaten to breathe on people, and, like, there's power in the spittle, wonder-working power. I think it can move Congress. We need to get close together and, say, like, we'll send out people to lick things. I don't know. We got to threaten people. It has to be sufficiently menacing that it will be known that if we don't have our demands met, that we will breathe on people. We will close talk. We will do all the things that sheltering in place tells you not to do. And that's the power that regular citizens have, the power to breathe on people. And if you're not willing to risk not just your life, because we're all interconnected. You're never actually just risking your life. You're risking other people's life. But that's the world. So if you're not willing to risk your life and other people's lives, then the people who are willing to risk their lives and other people's lives, including yours, will end up ruling you. So I think the left needs a safety factory strike. We need a march. I would think it should be on or around May 1. I think before, actually, because as soon as quarantine ends and the economy start opening up, then we lose leverage, right? So, and it's going to open up on terms that are not very favorable to the American worker, right? So we should say, look, we're going to shelter in place. We're willing to shelter in place on these terms. And the terms should be hazard pay for essential employees. We should backstop private payrolls up to starting at $30 an hour, right? So anybody who's working and has to work, either at a grocery store or whatever, should be at least making $30 an hour if you're on a close contact profession, right? For the duration of the quarantine, we should be backstopping you up to $30 an hour, like to start you at $30 an hour. And number one, so hazard pay with private employers being backstopped by Congress to the tune of $30 an hour. Second, we need a federal job guarantee. There was some, I want to say 22 million unemployment claims that have been launched in the last few weeks. 22 million unemployed people who may, or, if they get a job at the end of it, it's not going to be at the same wages and it's not going to be with the same security, right? So we need to offer them the same security and certainty in their plans that we offered the largest CEO of like some of these industries, right? The people who will get the bailout and will get an infinite amount of loans that don't have to be paid back, right? We need them to walk around as if they were as taken care of as the CEO of Boeing. And what that means is a federal job guarantee with replacement income for while you're on quarantine. But then you get called up when quarantine gets lifted, right? And that job should be, you should be right now knowing that when this is over, you have a $20 an hour job waiting for you, doing whatever. This could be mandated by, the jobs could be determined by the local, state, or federal level, but it would be a federal job guarantee as a citizen. We took away your job. Now we're going to secure your job on our dime and rebuilding either internet, because we need an entire infrastructure. If it's up to me, we need pretty much shelter-in-place infrastructure built, which means, wellness checks and tracking and tutors and like a more flexible schedules and rural broadband and devices, and then training people on devices. Like, there's a lot of work to be done if we're serious about getting the care work done, and a lot of work that needs to be childcare. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done that wealthy people have done for them, but is prohibitively priced for non-wealthy people, right? Elder care, right? Elder care goes anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000 a month. So we might need to build and maintain more elder care facilities that don't run as high, right? So those are federal jobs. Look, if you have any question about what these federal jobs would be, I have like a list of things. But just look at the WPA. They had cultural products because culture matters, and we need to be able to be free and responsible as Americans and know what to do with our freedom. So we need cultural products. We need plays, and we need artistry, and we need the culture is what tells us how to responsibly and meaningfully use our freedom. But we also need material goods, like actually building elder care facilities. So if we had a federal job guarantee that was instituted right now, but we got replacement income as people weren't able to work because of quarantine, then people would be free insofar as they'd be able to make and enact their plans for their lives. And that's what self-determination in America looks like. It means being able to make and enact plans without some alien force coming in and taking and frustrating your ability to make and enact plans. Right? So, and then the last demand would be healthcare. Right? So I think we walk out, we march for 3 demands: hazard pay for the people who are essential employees who are working, a federal job guarantee for all Americans starting at $20 an hour with replacement pay as you're in quarantine, and lastly, healthcare. Right? So we walk out, we march, that's what we're marching for, and if we don't do that, then workers don't have any power. Our only leverage is that we are vectors of disease. Right? And we have to make it be known that we are perfectly willing to continue working, staying at home in place, but our working conditions in this safety factory need to be renegotiated. And if we start doing that, I think there needs to be a march on Washington. And if we start doing that, and then encourage wildcat strikes, safety strikes on other monuments with these 3 demands. You can't go out there without demands, or demands that'll be misinterpreted. So send this video out to everyone else, because everyone needs the arguments. With these 3 demands: hazard pay for the essential workers, because Congress is sheltering at home, but I just went to Walmart, and those people are we just decided they're expendable. They should have the same safety as Congress. So we need hazard pay for those working. We need a federal job guarantee for those who can't work or have been laid off, or just everybody, and with replacement pay as they stay in quarantine. And then lastly, we need universal health care. Those 3 demands, that's what we walk out for. And let me tell you something about the idea that Congress has given themselves a holiday till May 4th. That's a choice, right? They chose to run back to wherever they are and stay in their mansions, and not McMansions, actual mansions, because they bailed out the people they really care about. We gave the corporate bailout, we bailed them out, we gave them security, we gave them safety. Now that we can, in their plans, now we can go and have a holiday in our enormous houses, right? That's what Congress did. They could have gone the other way. They could have said, well, we need to be safe and shelter in place, but let's sequester in Washington, and we're essential employees. We just scuttle. Hey, thank you. We just scuttle back. We just scuttle back and forth. This is what happens when you work at home. We just scuttle back and forth from our little apartments we have in D.C. to the Capitol as we work out a bailout that's appropriate to the citizens of the United States. So that's a choice that Congress made. Congress made a choice to bail out those people they care about while leaving everybody else in a lurch. And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way, but we have to fight for it. And I will tell you, if we go on a march, I will tell you, I will be there. This isn't well, she won't be there. But I will be there, and I will speak my truth, because speak my truth. No, and then I might have to stay at a hotel for a few days before I come home. But I will speak my truth. And I think it's just the only leverage we have, because, sheltering at home, you can't actually exert any power that way. None of your petitions matter. And that's...
I am a braggy.
And that matters. for our freedom. All right, so I need to close this out, and then we will I don't know.
Listen to it.
Well, no, we'll just play some violin or something. All right, so
I have to clean up my room. Then I'm gonna do capoeira.
You're gonna clean up your room, then do capoeira. Sounds good to me. All right, so we need a march. The general strike won't work because it's pushing all the political responsibility onto a small class of the most vulnerable people in America. We need a march. We need to weaponize. We need to be willing to not cooperate with a government that's not willing to fund the mandate that it's given us to stay at home. So this is non-cooperation with the stay-at-home order. I'm encouraging it with a purpose, and be clear about the purpose. You can't just go out willy-nilly and no, we need a federal job guarantee, we need hazard pay for those essential workers, and we need health care. And the Congress that has succeeded in giving themselves the next 3 weeks off in their mansion, we need them back working for us before we pretend that we're going to do what they want us to do. I hope this has been helpful. Really ticked about Congress. They totally could have decided to sequester themselves in Washington and just scuttle back and forth like Kroger employees from work to their little apartments they have in Washington and actually work this out for the nation. But instead, they just decided to go back to their McMansions. Mansions. And that is sorely disappointing. Thank you for your time, and I will see you. I'll see you when I see you. I hope to see you in Washington. Get this around. Send this video to all of your people. The problem with the Marxist left is they don't understand the way of life is more important than life. So the idea that I got another kid on me now. So the idea that that freedom is and your way of life is more important than actually sustaining life doesn't get them. Doesn't penetrate. And that's why they're going to be ruled by the right, who's actually gets that you have to threaten life or be willing to threaten life if you're going to take power. And if you're not willing to threaten life to take power, you're going to end up working for the people who are. Thank you very much. I will see you when I see you. Peace.